Hello, hello. Let's get this going and recording. Hey there, everyone. Welcome to 2026. I am so excited to get going on our Vital Energy series for 2026. So, as everybody's jumping in on all these platforms, I'm so excited to share that we are already recording if you're tuning in. We are going live on my YouTube channel as well as live on Instagram. So, bringing this to you as you've requested. There's so many sources so you can tune in, get notified, and not miss out on this. So I'm super excited to continue to dive into the Vital Energy series. This is series 11. Can you believe it? We have literally been doing this for half a year already, which is so wild and crazy. And so we have a huge bank and a huge YouTube section on my channel that you could check out for all the previous Vital Energy series. In 2026, we are diving in deeper. So if you have missed out on the other 10 series, you may want to go back and watch them because we are not back to basics in 2026. We are diving all in into all of the topics that everybody wants to hear about. We had to go through the basics first, but we are diving in into some very specific and unique programs. And I would say most commonly the things that I work with on a day-to-day outside of just the general aspects of things. So we are going to have so many other fun topics coming up. Like next week, we are talking about pregnancy. Then we are talking about man code. We're going to go through some of the top dominating programs for the male species that we see in our partners, our counterparts, our loved ones, and our friends that we want to get this information to them. So again, I am live on so many channels right now. YouTube, Instagram, Zoom. So wherever you're tuning in, if you have questions, drop them in the chat. Easiest way to get questions is probably to join on Zoom, drkaylazoom.com. You could always tune in here and let's get going. Awesome. Let's go. Welcome and agenda. If you've listened to the other 10 of these, we run them pretty similarly. First and foremost, this presentation is for educational and informational purposes only. I do have a lot of really fun credentials and exciting qualifications, which really doesn't matter today because we're not talking about diagnosing, treating, curing, or preventing any type of illness. We're going to go through looking at fertility challenges, especially we're talking about fearless fertility. So we're talking about how fertility doesn't actually cause a dysfunction if we're having that big infertility word that we like to talk about that I don't like to call because our body is not broken. Our body is not malfunctioning. It is adapting. So we're going to look at the 5 biological laws applied to reproduction. And again, if you're new here, this is the first time you're checking it out. We have 10 other series, folks, that you could go back and tune in. I have an entire class that you can tune into to learn the introductory to the 5 biological laws of nature. So if you're a little lost here today, don't worry, there'll be a replay. There's lots of others and other free education out there. And then a really easy course, super low ticket that you could opt into of mine to watch and learn the introductory aspects of this. So we're going to cover just for today. I could talk about fertility for literally 10 years. It is something that's near and dear to my heart. My own story. I've worked with dozens and dozens of clients over the last almost 8 years now. And so 3 primary fertility programs that we're going to talk about today that apply in men and women and that are very unique to each of those biological species. How stress, fear, and pressure actually impact our fertility in ways that you've never probably heard of. And then why timing and safety matters more than effort. And I know, we're going to have this whole cliche conversation here about fertility and why there's some truth to those cliches and why there's some myths to those cliches. But last but not least, I want to leave you here today with the resolution because that's always what my intention is. I want to expand your mind, expand your consciousness, allow you to see the other side that your body's already functioning on. This is biology. Your body functions this way, so you don't actually have to know it yet. So we're taking the conscious and marrying it to the subconscious, and that's how we restore this coherence. So a little bit about myself, if you have never heard of me before, here I am out in the internet space. I've been on here for a long time, at least what I consider a long time. By trade, I am a prenatal women's health and pediatric and animal chiropractor. I have a master's in nutrition and human performance, all specialty looking at pediatric nutrition, prenatal nutrition. I am a German healing knowledge or Germanic new medicine practitioner. I have a bachelor's in exercise physiology, lots more fun credentials, certifications, but none of that matters because my intention here in this world and my purpose is to guide you And anybody out there that feels to call back to self-healing through the biological lens of adaptation, through light, through frequency, through energetic coding, and through wholeness of our innate intelligence. So again, just a quick disclaimer, we're here for educational purposes. I am a doctor, I'm not your doctor. Even if you are a patient of mine that you're watching this, none of this is any intention to diagnose, treat, or prevent any type of medical condition. I invite you to seek your sovereign health and autonomous medical choices with those that you entrust with your health, your care providers, and who you seek for your own personal health regard. So let's dive in. Like I said, we've done this. This is number 11, so I'm not going to continue to dive into the basics of this. We are amping it up in 2026. So the 5 biological laws of nature discovered by Dr. Reid Hammer, who was a German internal medicine doctor, who realized after thousands and thousands of cases, there was an organizational pattern of reason and biological laws that existed that explained how our body, and not just our bodies, but that of animals, plants, and of course humans, adapted to our external environment. And this wasn't just in one area of the body. This is with the psyche, this is with the brain, and with the organ system. And in the real world, we don't ever separate those. We only separate them for research, for medicine, or explaining science. When we look at the basis of who we are in the world, none of these things are ever separate. They are literally micromilliseconds of communication via light, via sound, via vibration that our brain, our psyche, and our organs connect and communicate to one another. So congratulations. Like I said a couple minutes ago, you are already attuned. You don't actually have to learn anything, because what's going to happen on these calls is your body's going to go, ah, this feels so great, because it's just like the law of gravity. You don't have to get up in the morning and you don't have to fight gravity, right? We don't have to fight our existence. Our body digests, our body functions, our feet stay on the ground. We don't have to fight going upside down and walking on the ceiling. We are already attuned. This is bringing your conscious mind to conscious awareness. So my intention here for all of these classes is for you to have a shift from the awareness and the perspective of activating that conscious side of what the subconscious part of your nervous system already knows and is already adapting to. So let's boil this down to 5 biological laws. And yes, they are a little bit more extensive when you read them verbatim, but I want to go over them in an easeful. I love analogies. If you don't know me, you will know very soon. Very high, easy, layman's terms analogies. So number 1 is every symptom has a meaning. If you've had a symptom, congratulations. That means that your body has adapted to something and your body is now communicating something to you. Second is conflicts trigger biological responses or programs. We are all unique. We all have our own psyche. So therefore, we all have our own lens of how we view the world. So through these conflicts that we experience, and this is something that either takes you off guard, something that knocks you off your feet, something that is a complete shock to you that you're not able to adapt to or you didn't see coming. There's a certain set of rules that we follow, but when you have this conflict ensue, your body now needs a response. Your nervous system has some type of reaction or response to this conflict, and it determines it through your psyche, through your own lens. And so therefore you determine the aspect of inadequate safety or inadequate survival that your body is adapting to. Number 3, healing follows conflict resolution. If we have a cause, then we have an effect. If we have a conflict, we have to resolve it. That's how the body works. It is a system. It is a mechanistic, organized pattern system. And so when we find resolution, we go into healing. And majority of the time, that is when you experience these quote unquote symptoms. And so when we experience these symptoms, we know that we have to have little assistants. These assistants are things such as microbes. So again, I've gone into so many of these classes. We're not going to go into in depth today, but microbes are essential for our impending repair. Sorry, the dogs. I am sitting here with all of my dogs and they are just playing like crazy. So I had to tell them to calm down. Um, so when we have the nervous system adapting, and these microbes are ensuing in our repair, this can look like any type of expression of symptoms. But when we have these microbes come in and move through this repair, we each get to determine what is going on in each system via its own predictable pattern. And so when we boil these laws down, we're really looking at how does our system adapt to the world and the environment that we live in. And if we can figure out how it's adapting, we have a lot more insight into determining whether this is an actual process that we need to fear or an in essence, we remove the fear of this process and this function. So overall, my intention here tonight is to tell you we need to fear less. We need to tap into the understanding and knowing of our beingness and trust that the nervous system does not malfunction. It only adapts. So I want to get into talking about this specific topic tonight. I have worked with individuals in the fertility world for almost 8 years now, and I've worked with women and men, couples predominantly. I only work with couples and have probably for the last 6 of those 8 years because it's so important to look at how our body organizes its fertility patterns. So when we look at this, we want to start off with understanding that our fertility is a mechanistic process. It is necessary for our survival. And so if our fertility is not functioning at the state that we desire, it's not that our body's broken. It's simply that our body is not in a biological readiness state because our two main intentions in our primal life, removing the modern aspect from it, is that fertility is not a switch. Fertility is a bioadaptive state to continue a species. And I know it sounds crazy to talk about ourselves like that as modern day humans, but our number one goal in life as humans is to survive. Because if we don't survive, we don't have human life. And second is our biological readiness to conceive and to procreate and to recreate individuals and continue on a species. It's no different than any animal. We are a primal animal. So when we look at this and we start to shift our perspective from understanding fertility as a matter of infertility or fertility, we can look at it through a lens of a biological readiness state and how highly adaptable is the individual to be able to continue to procreate and survive and move forward as a species. And so when the body does not conceive when it's forced, it's because we need to look at a biological readiness state of adaptation rather than looking at is it broken or not. It is not black and white. It is not on or off. It is a matter of amplitude. Excuse me. So when we look at when we're conceiving, we have to understand if the conditions to conceive allow us to feel safe, allow us to feel resourced, or allow us to be coherent or cohesive in our adaptation process. And when we look at fertility, we want to look at the state of reflective perception, not of failure. And again, this is the number one question I ask all of my clients when I'm working with is, are you in a fear state, excuse me, or are you in a readiness state? And a lot of this is always subconscious because what do we do in a system when our body's not functioning? We automatically, even subconsciously, assume that our body is just broken. So again, today my purpose is to remove the fear from this process. So looking fertility through a biological lens, we have to look at how fertility follows that survival logic. It's no different than if you are in fight or flight or a fear-based mode in some other type of conflict. Fertility follows the same logical process. And reproduction is not optional in our species. It's essential. And therefore, just like survival is essential, reproduction is essential. If it's not functioning, it's not a big, huge alarm that we're broken. It's a big alarm that we need to return back to our biological state of readiness to allow ourselves to continue to move ourselves forward as an individual, i.e., as a species. So the body will pause fertility when safety is questioned. And symptoms, of course, during this process are actually necessary and important for us to understand to dive into that adaptive state and understand what is meaningfully going on for our survival and therefore for our impending evolution as a species to procreate. So if the body is perceiving stress, instability, or threat, then we know that fertility is most likely going to be biologically deprioritized because we are prioritizing our survival versus continuing that species. This, in essence, is simple intelligence. It's not what we are being described to as individuals in an allopathic measure as being broken, less fortunate, not having the opportunity, not being able to procreate. I've worked with individuals literally who have been trying to conceive through all means in the scientific world for over 8 years. And we have taken them from a non-adaptive state here subconsciously and consciously to a bioadaptive state by very simplistic understanding. And that is why I'm here tonight, because it is about understanding the intelligence that lives inside of us and allows us to shift, not being this outside-in mechanism preying on us to sabotage our procreation. So let's look at the three primary fertility programs. And for ease of purposes, this is very overview based. These sessions that I do, these Vital Energy series, are boiling massive pot down to a tiny, tiny little stovetop taste for you so that you can start to shift this perspective in a way that allows you to have less fear and more understanding. So let's look at the three fertility challenges. And both of these can apply differently to men and women, but we're just going to look at them for ease of conversation and time constraint tonight over the aspect of just the biological laws themselves. So we have a sexual conflict, procreation conflict, or territorial or safety conflict. So let's dive into these one-on-one. Let's see, zoom out here. There we go. Okay, so program number one, sexual conflict can occur for both men and women. We could look at how it relates to feeling pressured, feeling invaded, or loss of choice or consent, fear around sexuality or conception. And again, these are just very broad-based topics. I've worked with individuals where it is very, very simplistic, straightforward. No one would ever think that this simple conflict has occurred that has created such massive outward symptoms. And that's just simply because our body is communicating more and more intensively and more loudly to help us cut off that chronic loop and move into full healing and resolution. So in women, this can impact, of course, our ovaries, our uterus, our cervix, our menstrual cycles, our hormones, right? Because none of these things are the actual cause. Those are symptoms. Seeing things outwardly, seeing ovarian cyst, seeing endometriosis, seeing any type of cervical issue, seeing any type of influctuation in menses in terms of how long your luteal phase is, in terms of how many days between bleeds that you have. These are all things that are symptoms of a meaningful biological adaptation that's allowing our body to communicate to us in ways we would have never, ever experienced if we didn't turn on the understanding and turn off the fear. In men, of course, we could see it in fact affecting the testes, sperm quality, libido. There can be some other aspects as well. And these are things that you would see, and most commonly, in most of the couples that I actually work with, I would say 8 out of every 10 couples that I work with, I see more and more of the male species having more fertility based programs due to their number one, loud communication of meaningful biological adaptation. We're seeing a lot more impacts to sperm quality, which we're going to talk about. We're seeing a lot more impacts to the testes, such as hydroceles, varicoceles, from other different conflicts and traumas through different modern day lifestyles that that men, not we, I'm not a man, but as males work through, and they're not understanding the adaptation that is ensuing in their body. So majority of the time in the conditions that I've experienced, it's more predominantly the male species. And sometimes it is both. There are some subtle things going on, especially when we're going to talk about when there is an quote unquote infertility situation where there has been a loss or there has been an inability to conceive due to these other impending programs. But we have to start looking and asking questions, not just pathologizing and trying to understand what's wrong. If we understand through the lens of understanding what's going on versus understanding what's wrong, we will see a difference. So let's look at program number 2. This is procreation conflict. So it sounds just like exactly what it is. So I don't want this child, or I deeply want this child, but fear losing it. And so this is commonly a lot of the programs that I see in the female species who are wanting so badly to conceive. They create this inadvertent conflict in and of themselves because it's a survival mechanism. If you're not able to create, biologically, what does your body do? It keeps creating and increasing its amount of adaptability in order for you to create. And so it's trying just as hard as you are, but that doesn't mean that we're getting more. That actually means that we're getting less because we're trying to over amplify a system that's already not adapting in this world. And so let's look at the conflicts that can arise from this. And so like I said, in my world that I typically work with, a lot of this does show up on the female aspect because we've experienced either loss or miscarriage. There's a fear of responsibility. There's this generational fear of not having help, being a lone village. I've experienced that before working with individuals. A financial or relational stress, right? As much as we want to conceive this baby, there's a subconscious fear that we're not going to make it, we're not going to be able to afford it. Because what is this? This is all pretty pre-predictive programming. And these conflicts happen throughout our lives when we hear stories, we experience things that these parts of our nervous system are wound into those conflicts. And then, of course, the pressure to conceive. This is a big one that I typically see, of course, and sometimes this happens in the males as well, this big pressure to conceive. And so if, for example, the male is experiencing some type of conflict, such as a conflict that affects their sperm quality and affects their sperm count, or some actual specific impedance to being able to conceive, there's a pressure that it's their fault or to blame them or that it's never going to happen for that. And the same thing applies, of course, for the female counterpart, as I think as a whole in the United States, we blame women a lot for the infertility, but it's pretty much equal. But in my case, it's about 8 out of 10 individuals I work with or couples I work with, it is the male. And so there's this pressure to conceive, and you create this conflict every single month that you're not. It's a shock that you're not pregnant again, or it's a shock when you see that test and it's not positive and you thought it was. And you create this pressure to conceive on yourself and others, and you can see how it's a perpetuated cycle of now your body responding by delaying and continually altering that fertility timing instead of unwinding it, looking at understanding, removing the fear, and looking at what the body is telling you. Then we have program number 3, territory and safety conflict. So we can look at this in terms of feeling unstable or unsupported. We see this, I've seen this in infertility in couples who already have children, in conceiving a second or third or fourth child, because there is, as much as we want the child, there is this conflict about feeling unsupported having previous children, or unsupported during a loss, or a relationship uncertainty where there's, one parent wants the child, the other one is not so certain about wanting to add more children. And we see these shifts that happen back and forth, and we could see these conflicts, and this typically shows up in different aspects of different symptoms around the potential impending ovulation time, the onset of the menses time, the male aspect of the hormones, looking at that aspect. There's all different things that we could see that are affected here. It could also impact because of housing, finances, or identity shifts, right? Change of life, not wanting to have another child. These things come up because they're just natural human emotions that are wrapped into these conflicts. And so if we look at, for women, this can influence cycles, implantation, hormones, right? Hormones are not a cause. Your hormones being in an influx and not having the ideal luteal phase and not having the ideal blood, the quantity of blood that you need, or the type of blood that you need. Maybe it's more old blood, maybe it's not, you're not bleeding for a certain amount of days. They're all actual symptoms. They are effects, not causes, and the actual cause is the meaningful biological adaptation. So for men, this can show up as affecting sperm quality and vitality, reproduction requiring always a safe nest to procreate and not the opposite. So if we are forcing and we are moving ourselves in a position of making procreation necessary out of demand and forcible nature, you are going to get stuck in a chronic fertility loop. I see this all the time. On average, I work with couples who have been experiencing, we'll just say, infertility in an allopathic sense for at least 2 years or more. Most of the time, it's over 5 years that I've worked with individuals. And this is why it's so important at this slide, is because the ongoing continuation of stress and pressure, the ongoing continuation of that fear of a diagnosis. The thing is, after 1 year of people wanting to get pregnant and are unable to do so naturally, they want to go get a diagnosis. And the biggest no-no you could ever do is have somebody outside of your own authoritative body tell you that there's a diagnosis and that something is wrong, because now you're just creating another conflict. And so you're perpetuating this cycle. Those who are constantly tracking and constantly taking tests, you're taking ovulation tests, you're taking HCG tests, you're going out and you're taking sperm quality tests, all of these processes, as much as we think that they're going to make us feel a certain level of certainty, we are actually subconsciously creating long-term tracks and urgency loops that are going to perpetuate fear and to perpetuate ongoing stress and pressure instead of doing the opposite. The constant process of course, repeated disappointment and no resolution of the original perception is something that I'm not going to say is easy, because I went through my own 2-year experience resolving my fertility, not having a cycle for almost 8 years, moving into having a cycle, going into having a cycle and not ovulating. So I understand there is a huge emotional game, and I'm not discrediting it. But what I'm looking at is removing ourselves from the system of fear, going and taking these very unsafe, high impact hormonal drugs to perpetuate a cycle that the body's already biologically and meaningfully preventing conception for a very important reason. And so when we shift our perspective and look at understanding what is going on, because I truly believe as a species, Biologically, we are responsible and needing and out of necessity to procreate. It's not something we do for fun. It's something that's a biological intention that we were created with. If we're able to shift this loop and remove this stuckness from our system, communicating to us what needs to be resolved and tap into resolution, and we remove the fear, we actually resolve the conflict and we could see meaningful resolution and see a meaningful shift. So let's talk about resolution. And again, I'm going to say this probably 1,000 times tonight. I want to talk about all the things about fertility. I could talk to you for about 10 hours about this subject. I've taught classes on it. I've taught continuing education on this in the chiropractic world. But what I want to talk to you about most is an overview. Because if something in here speaks to you in terms of understanding and shifting your subconscious perspective, you will see more healing in your own innate body than you would if something you did outside of it, because that is the power that we have. So if anything speaks to you tonight, reach out to me and we could continue the conversation. But I want to give you an overview for you to be able to send this to individuals that have been experiencing something as heavy and dense as this, to allow them to continue that conversation and shift in ways that gives them their power back and continues to remove the fear, because nobody deserves to sit in a fearful state, especially as a couple, because we see these things break up relationships, break up marriages, break up families, and that is the complete opposite. If we could get on the idea of a meaningful shift and start to understand what's happening and figure out how to change our perception, how to restore safety in the body, even subconsciously, how to allow this pressure, this continual pressure to dissolve, we find that choice returns. We find that we have a choice in the impending response of our body, and we are in power of this intelligent being and this intelligent, subconscious, meaningful adaptation that is inside of us. So the two biggest things I want you to remember from today is the body responds instantly to new information. And so the biggest thing that you could do tonight is just listen. I've taught this class over and over again, my entire intro series. And the one time I taught it, the first time actually I taught it, it was over 50 individuals. And by the end of the 6 weeks, we had more symptoms, resolutions, people sick that you could ever imagine, more than half the class in the first 2 weeks. And that's because the power is here. Removing the fear empowers us to be back in a state of authority. And it's about healing as a whole, not about healing about the time of healing, but the actual meaning of what healing means for our body. So as a whole, resolution is a conscious choice. When we start to understand, when we start to choose safety, we start to choose to trust our body, even though it doesn't look like it's trustable yet, it's still a little sus, but we still choose safety, we still choose trust, and we choose to see through a new perspective or a new lens. That is actually choosing coherence over control, and that allows our body to go, you're actually trusting in conscious choice and signaling safety to your biology. And the exact moment that you choose that choice and you replace that fear with recalibration, your body is able to go in an easeful communicative state. So let's look at preconception, because I would literally be so disappointed in myself if I didn't talk about preconception, because here's the truth of the matter. I've spoke on this, I've got on soapboxes on this for almost a decade. I've had 3 children myself. I've taken at least 6 months to a year, first time it was 2 years, preconception periods in order to prepare for this meaningful survival, logical procreation and continuation of the species. And again, I don't talk about it like this because it's vanilla. I talk about it like this because it's biologically intelligent. Our bodies are wired for conception and for procreation. And it is a miracle, right? We all believe that having a baby from a seed to a baby is like the most miraculous process, but it happens every single day in every species. There's some type of procreation that continues and on. So when you look at it as a miracle, it's like, holy cow, it's a miracle because I don't understand how it works. But when you look at it logically, it is incredibly simplistic because it works. It works. That's our intention. That's our innate intelligence at work. So if we look at this from a sperm and an egg, we know that the sperm renews quality on a 60-day cycle. We know that the egg maturation reflects a 120-day cycle. So that means 60 days ago that the sperm you have right now that potentially is going to make this baby is based off the quality of what you were doing in your life 60 days ago. When we look at egg maturation, the egg that is going to meet this potential sperm is going to be a reflection of your life 120 days ago. So we have this thing in science called epigenetics. We believed for a very long time, decades, as a species, that we were victim to our own genetics, that we couldn't change them, that we had all these hereditary things, that we were victim to our family's problems. That is not true. We have epigenetics, meaning that your genes turn on and turn off based off of your external environment. So based off of how you're adapting to your external world, you could turn on or turn off genes. You are no longer a victim to what somebody else in your family lineage has done to their body. That is not true. So you have the power and the potential in the fertility world to shape epigenetically over time. So quality in this sense 100% matters more than speed ever could. That's because you want to not sit and wait to get pregnant based off of instantaneous timeline. You want to conceive under a timeline that is intentional, that is qualitative and not quantitative, because conscious preparation changes outcomes tenfold. And so when we look at this as fertility happening in cycles and not in the moment, we would rather have cyclic intelligence rather than immediate intelligence, especially when we're resolving or we're trying to meaningfully adapt to previous conflicts and programs that we've been experiencing. So let's look at this as preconception as a biological necessity. I've worked with dozens and dozens of couples over the years, and those that have had longer, more meaningful biological necessity-based preconception periods have better outcomes in every aspect, better maternal outcomes, better paternal outcomes in terms of the male contributing to its biological necessity of the fetus. So the sperm contributes to the long bones, the placenta, and the umbilical cord. And so this is why I say when I work with most couples, most of the time, chronic miscarriage, chronic loss, chronic genetic issues are not from predominantly the female, because the male sperm contributes the DNA to the long bones, the placenta, and the umbilical cord. So things even like preeclampsia, we are looking at quality of the sperm. So if we are going to take a 120-day cycle for a female and work on a 120-day cycle, that's 2 cycles for every female cycle. And if we look at this from a male perspective, we know that men don't carry as much adipose tissue or body fat. Therefore, they're more susceptible to toxins and chemicals, which do not apply in the Germanic healing knowledge world because they're toxic. We don't adapt to toxins, they just toxify us. So if we know that the sperm is impacted twice as much as the female body, because the female body has adipose tissue, then therefore we know that we absolutely need 2 cycles of sperm to every 1 cycle of fertility. So I tell most individuals, no matter where they're at in the fertility world, to take at least 240 days of preconception. That's literally almost a year, 365. And that's because if you could take more than that, it's more power to you. I've taken at least 6 months to a year for preconception periods, but I've been doing this since I was 23. That's over 10 years ago. So I've been in a constant preconception period. I don't change my preconception state, even if I am postpartum nursing, because I know biologically I'm not done conceiving children yet. And the same goes for my partner. So when we look at this and we look at this cycle, we know there's 2 male cycles for every 1 female cycle. And so we want the female to have at least 2 full cycles, if not 3 more ideally. And therefore that would get the male counterpart twice as much. And in my sense of the world, most of the time, the males are the ones that have more fertility, meaningful biological adaptations, and therefore need a little bit more time to unwrap those and tap into higher quality of long bones, umbilical cord, and placental adaptations. So if we look at the egg quality reflecting a 120-day window, this is key. Women, you carry the baby. But also, the baby cannot survive without healthy, bioadaptive long bones, umbilical cord, and placenta. That is essential. And so, if we're seeing things, education, information, in terms of not carrying a baby throughout the first trimester, we're seeing more placental things, we're seeing more long bone things, we're seeing miscarriage, early loss. look at the biological necessity of the quality of your sperm experience, because that is going to make all the difference. This is where epigenetic comes in, the environment, stress, perceptions, nourishment, all the aspects that we talk about in terms of those top 3 conflicts impacting the male is exactly what you want to look at to continue to resolve, so you don't continue to pass that forward. So looking at the male species, and I want to spend time on this because this is something that I spend a lot of time in with couples, especially male, is the top 3 things we look at. It's not just having a lot of sperm. Sorry, men. I know everybody thinks quantity is better or size matters, but we have to look at actually what's going on qualitatively. So we have motility, which is the movement of the sperm. We have morphology, which is the shape and the structure of the sperm. And then we also have the concentration or the quantity. And now I'm going to say this. The standards in the United States are subpar to anywhere else in the world. So if you as a male have been told that you have great sperm quality, I want the numbers. Because in the United States, numbers are ridiculously low in terms of standards compared to other places in the world. We have the worst fertility outcomes in terms of conception, I would say, in other than most countries. And it's because we have such low expectations. And I say this not to be, jokingly or rude, but if they see, I think it's less than 4% of sperm in a sample, they consider you fertile. Other countries require 30, 40, 50% to be viable in order for you to be considered fertile. So just because you have sperm does not actually mean it's high quality. And that's what I'm trying to get across here, is that these qualities are not fixed traits. They are responsive to perception, stress, safety, and vitality. And if you are in a chronic loop of one of those conflicts, these are going to wax and wane. So getting one test and then choosing some type of outside-in mechanism isn't going to resolve an impending meaningful biological conflict that is trying to actually heal and resolve in your body to give you a better internal environment, externally lived, versus the opposite. So preconception is not about rushing. I can't say this enough. I know I was there. Everybody's dream is to have a baby. But I always ask all of my clients, safety, adaptation, and viability, when you break it down, are logically more important than just collapsing a timeline and getting a baby. Because I've also cared for babies through rushed fertility outcomes, and see the long-term conflicts, because the unresolved conflicts of the parents become the unresolved conflicts of the child. And especially in a stressful, high toxic environment, you can see these outcomes get passed on to the child, and then we have to also resolve them in the child. And so again, I get it. We want to get there fast, but if we get there intentionally, instead of putting our foot on the gas, we can see a lot better outcomes for the entire family. So one essential piece is resolving these biological programs and shifting the perspective so that fertility is no longer in this protection mode. And then moving on from there, we want to optimize the other puzzle pieces gently and intentionally, because it's not just about A plus B equals C. It's not sperm plus egg equals baby. There's so much more than that. And we can see and understand how when we respond to fertility in preparation and not in panic, the whole entire family outcomes completely shift. So I want to shed light on something tonight, pun intended, that I always start with all of my fertility couples. Because if you are in any type of biological meaningful conflict in your life, your body is just desiring more vital energy, more vital life force energy in order for your body to find repair. So think about this for a second. You're a stressed male or female who's experiencing, let's say, allopathic infertility, and you have for some time. And you're on this chronic loop of continually trying to figure out what's wrong, whose fault is it? Is it the sperm? Is it the egg? Is it both? I'm not getting any answers, and we haven't met the year diagnosis yet, so now we can't go do anything, and I'm freaking out, and I just want to have a baby so bad, and I feel broken, and my partner feels broken, and we don't really mesh anymore together. What has that done? That has completely removed safety. Any type of safety, any type of stabilization, any type of certainty, any type of foundation that is safe is gone. It's all fear. It's all illogical. It's all fear-based. It's all reactive-based. It's all emotion-based. There's no groundedness. And so we take someone like that, no matter what their conflicts are, and they're like just demanding vital energy. They need a space to breathe. They need room to think. They need more energy, more biological information for their body to regulate. We take that and we give them a source of safety. We give them an opportunity to expand, to communicate cellularly through light in a way that we've never experienced before because we're on this chronic constant loop. And if these cells respond to this just instant, small, simple taste of vital energy that we have been lacking, imagine what it can do intelligently. And so I want to share with you something tonight that I have added just in the past 2 years to anybody that I work with, no matter what conflict you're resolving. Even if you aren't resolving a conflict and you're just wanting more adaptability, you're wanting to be more vital, you're wanting to optimize your vitality, no matter who you are. This isn't diagnosis based. This is just vital potential biohacking aspect. If you add this own light-based code to relay biological information back and forth to your body, just a little bit, and your nervous system and your biology and your innate intelligence can take it and do something more with it than it was able to do before. And it just finds this much more safety. Think of what is possible. And so I want to share with you the power and potential of light therapy, because your body is actually made of light. The human body absorbs and emits light. It's essential for cellular communication. We are beings of light, for frequency, of sound, of energy. There's nothing inside of it that doesn't require energy. And so when we look at this as vital life force energy that flows inside of us, that communicates, that keeps us running, that connects, that is the root of all these conflicts, it functions based off this energy. If we don't have this in an abundance amount, we're going to perpetuate a loop that we just talked about that's constantly chronic. If we add just a little bit more light, it doesn't actually override our biology. It's not correcting these programs because we have to subconsciously find resolution. But it's like if you're in a room of noise and you can't hear yourself. It's like if you have 3 children like me and you can't hear yourself think. And then you go, I'm just going to take some space in the bathroom and hide in there for a few minutes to think. That peace and quiet for just 30 seconds does wonders to your brain. And that's exactly how light works. If you have more light to communicate with, you're not overriding the biology. You're simply saying, here's a little bit more to work with. Here's a little bit more biology for your body to amplify. And that's what I'm talking about, because we want to talk about how your own light meets biological adaptation. So if you have this biological, I'm taking mine off right here. Oh, my daughter ripped them off today. I don't even have one on. Look at me. My newly 1-year-old likes to rip mine off. So you have this little patch that's literally organic cotton, 3M medical adhesive tape. There's no ingredients except for stereoisomers of water, oxygen, and amino acids that literally take your own wavelengths of light that your body emits and reflects it back into your body like a little mirror, and it helps activate different pathways of your body via your own light. This one we're going to talk about tonight is your own light activates a copper peptide called GHK copper peptide. You can look up GHK copper peptide on PubMed, 33 pages of medical research, stem cell research done on GHK copper peptide, showing that GHK copper peptide is essential for stem cell repair, activation, and regeneration. So look up the medical research, go do your due diligence. Don't trust what I'm saying, go read it for yourself. And when we have this GHK copper peptide that our body makes on its own, and we have it in abundance, we have more light, we have more energy, we have more vibration, we have more frequency, more room to think. Our body can intelligently move through stress reduction, move through natural repair and resolution of healing, and then you get long-term effects of that, which are optimized vitality and energy. So if we take this patch, which pretend I have this little patch because thank you, Magdalena, you ripped them all off of me today, that impacts our light signaling. Therefore, it impacts our nervous system support, not treating symptoms, not treating diagnosis, just simply allowing more light and space, more intelligent communication in our body. Therefore, we could find resolution easier, which means we can actually resolve these conflicts at a more easeful, less intensive rate and restoring ourselves to homeostasis. That is the key, and that is what I've done over the past 2 years with my fertility couples. So just on a side note, there's no ingredients entering the body. These are non-transdermal, folks. So we're not putting anything in. There's no chemicals, no vitamins, nothing that's going through the bloodstream, nothing that's going into your skin. It's simply your own light being reflected back inside of you. There's no side effects or contraindications because We're not putting anything into our body. I already told you what's inside the patch. This comes from a company who has over 200 patents now for 90 clinical studies showing the adaptability of our own body utilizing its own light and increasing our biological means. Here's a little segment on for medical research, stem cell research that shows the benefits of GHK copper peptide. Again, go do your own research. GHK copper peptide, people are injecting it. I guess if that's your game, you could go do it. I always think a home cooked meal is far better than eating out, but that's for you to determine. So when you are able to make your own biological variants in biological nutrients, inside out is always better than outside in. At least that's how I believe. And I think most people would agree. So do your research on it. And I want to invite you in one last piece because it's not about having an outside in fix. It always has to come from inside. And so I share about these, I share about the light therapy, I share about the power and potential of your own body and your own innate intelligence healing. But what it always comes down to is your biological codes. How are you living biologically? We live in a very modern day world. We live in a world that tells us that our body is broken, that we are less than, that we are not adaptable, that we have to have some type of outside in fix in order to heal ourselves, that healing has been removed from our autonomy, that we don't get choices in terms of what we do for our body. It always has to come from an outside in source. I don't buy into that. I believe in quite the opposite. Some call me radical, some call me an extremist, you call me whatever you want. I've seen it in my own biology, resolving things of 20 years. I've resolved my own celiac disease. I've resolved long-term programs in myself, as well as programs in my children, that of my animals, and hundreds of clients that I've worked with. And it's not that we're healing anything. It's that we're choosing to shift and return to our biological living state. We are not choosing the fast-paced, the very intensive, the very unsustainable modern day lives that we all live. We know modern day is exciting. We know there's lots of things, new inventions and technology, and there is medicine there for us when we need it. I'm not against medicine. I'm not against allopathic medicine. I'm for removing fear and making conscious choices and understanding when to choose what is right for you based off of conscious awareness and not out of fearful choice. And so when we understand, even in the fertility world, again, this is session number 11, we've talked about a lot of things and they all end the same way. Your body's not broken. It's been responding intelligently all along. You just haven't been consciously aware of it because everybody, no matter if you've heard about this in your 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 110, your body's been doing this. Physiology doesn't lie. You can apply the laws of allopathic medicine, holistic medicine, Eastern medicine to the box of physiology under its own guidelines, its own definitions, its own philosophies, and physiology will always be the same. There's a conflict, it responds to a resolution, it adapts, there's a resolution, it responds, you have a symptom, you go back and you resolve, and then you go back to normal homeostasis. And so when we understand that our goal is to restore safety, no matter what conflict are in, it's our goal to shift our perception here as the powerful human, and we remove that fear, we're actually choosing coherence. And yes, symptoms are yucky. There is an impending healing time. Sometimes healing does take a lot of time because it's been in conflict for a very long time. When we understand that fearless fertility actually begins with understanding, not just more information, not just throwing things into the body. This is when the body actually feels safe. And this is when life actually knows when to arrive and how to arrive, because no matter what drugs you take to get pregnant or to conceive, no one has to tell that fetus, that baby, that impending new life how to grow. It just does. And so if we shift our perspective and choose the shift that if my new life, as soon as that spark of conception, when the zinc reaction happens and you see that massive light, if you were like me, you felt it because you're very connected to your body, and you know that that's when that experience starts for you, and that being knows how to grow over a 10-month time from that moment, why are you questioning your ability to conceive in the first place? And so I want to invite anybody, if they have any questions, here's my email. I know this is a sensitive topic. We're not going to do a Q&A over this today. I work with people and I like to keep privacy as privacy. If you have questions, please reach out to me. I do take a small amount of fertility clients. So I do have some on my wait list already for this year. So if you are someone who wants to reach out for a fertility consult, I do only work with couples because, it takes two to tango. And so you could book a fertility consult through this here. It's not available on my website. You could reach out to me if you want the link, but this is the direct link to book with me. We do work together one-by-one sessions. We do dive into each of your programs and we continue to move through that. So if you want help on that side of things in terms of shifting your perspective and having a better understanding of your intelligence of your body, feel free to reach out. If you want more information on the phototherapy patches from LifeWave, which again, I utilize with all of my clients, no matter what their diagnosis is, because it's not about diagnosis or treating or curing things, it's about tapping into that vital life force energy and giving your body the tools to help you resolve from a clearer, less foggy, more abundant space. So if someone invited you here for this tonight and you want to order those, please get in contact with them. They will help you. They're connected to me in somehow, some way, and they will help you get that order in, getting started with X39 and continuing that process, adding the vital energy patches for a fertility-based, robust health and optimal vitality experience. If you just somehow stumbled upon YouTube or Instagram tonight and all the things and Zoom that I am streaming live from in this new year. And it is just divine fate and divine intervention that we met, and you feel like I'm the right fit and don't have somebody else, feel free to reach out to me via that same email. And I can help you get them ordered. You can join our biological living community via my YouTube page here. This replay will be up in 24 hours. Next week, we will be diving into the pregnancy aspect of this and what conflicts and impending experienced symptoms that come up during pregnancy and how to resolve them and how to remove them from your life so you don't experience them when you are pregnant, how to resolve them during a preconception period, and especially also during pregnancy and why those things happen, and a little bit of my own personal experience with resolving things during pregnancy and so on. So if anybody has any questions, please email me again for sensitivity topics and just respecting people's privacy and personal stories. Feel free to reach out. Sending you all so much love. Go back and catch all the other 10 episodes. I'll have this up in 24 hours. So much love to you.